Hi, I'm Dave Barnes.
And I'm John McLaughlin.
And welcome to Dadville.
Dadville is a podcast where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of awesome dadding.
It's funny thoughts and deep talks.
So please, enjoy your time here in Dadville and enjoy this episode with Dave and me, John. And we're rolling. Everybody, welcome to Dadville. I'm your host, John McLaughlin.
Yep, do I say anything? Co-hoster.
I told you before we started just to let me do the talking. Sorry. Why am I doing the talking? I'll tell you why. Because we have a very, very special guest on Dadville. He's very comfortable in Dadville.
Okay.
He's a resident founder. Discoverer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Co-discoverer. He is an American, as far as I know, and an American songwriter, producer, musician, comedian, lawn care specialist. He's written songs for the likes of Thomas Rhett, Carrie Underwood, Ingrid Michaelson, John McLaughlin, and Dan and Shay, just to name the cream of the crop. He's appeared on at least one soap opera.
That's true.
As himself.
That is true.
All My Children.
Yep.
CMA Award nominated, Dove Award winning, Grammy nominated artist, friend, Dave Barnes.
Look at that. That was good.
Welcome.
Can I also just real quick say that All My Kids is literally what people call that. I'm not kidding. When I got into a little bit of that universe of All My Children.
Oh, is it like
shows.
A Star Wars kind of thing?
Yes. I met some people at shows who were like, "Oh, dude, we loved your episode on All My Kids." And I was like, "What is that?" And they're like, "Sorry, it's what we like people who really watch it call it." I was like, "Oh. Oh."
Okay.
I was not
now,
ready for this.
We've talked about this before, but I was on The Bold and the Beautiful.
B&B.
B&B.
Yeah.
Is that what they call it?
That's what
B&B?
I do. That's what I call it right now.
You know what we should do? We should have like a soap person on to talk. That's a whole world. I'm sure. Right?
I feel like less of a world now because there's just not as many.
Like, there aren't?
No. Bold
and the Beautiful and All My Kids. Sorry, All My Children. And those are the two main ones?
Is All My Children gone, though? Am I wrong?
I mean, I have no idea.
I know this. I know they went from, like normal cable TV to either online, and maybe they're still online, or maybe it's gone. I actually don't know. It hurts too much to watch it now because my character got killed off.
I don't remember. I mean...
Wait, what did you do on Bold and Beautiful?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to think. They didn't need to tell me anything because I didn't need to know anything. I think like you, I was just performing.
Oh, okay.
But it was like in a theater, and some of like the main characters of Bold and Beautiful were like I think they were like at one of my concerts.
Yeah.
Did
you have a line?
No. I just sang Beautiful Disaster.
Okay. Bold and
disastrous.
Beautiful disaster.
There we go.
There it is.
Anyway, and then afterward, the only thing I remember is they were like doing some lighting stuff, and there are all these people. I mean, there's 300 people in this little theater, and so they were just waiting forever. And so I just like started talking to the crowd because my like piano didn't actually work or something like that, so I couldn't just play
songs.
Anyway, so I did like a Q&A for like 30 minutes, and I loved it.
No way.
It was the most random kind of like MCing kind of thing that I've ever done. Anyway.
And they just let you do it?
Yeah. They were just like, oh, please. I mean,
so like, what were some of the questions?
No, I was just like, hey, anybody have a question for me? And it can be, who are you? Go ahead.
Oh, my. Can we shouldn't everybody start every Q&A with that? And the first question can't be who you are. Let's go ahead and open it up. That starts it in such a wonderful place.
Okay. I'm glad that's where this is going. You know what? Let's not talk about what we were going to talk about. Let's just lean more into the Q&A. No, we're here to talk about your new record. It's called Remembering, Greatest Hits Acoustic.
Yeah, we don't say the colon, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm not supposed to pronounce it. Just silent colon.
The worst sci-fi novel of all time.
Okay, here's how I want to start.
Hold on. The silent colon. Once you go in, you never get out. There's so many.
Talk about something I would not watch.
Oh, yeah.
No.
You'd want to hear. I'd be the guy to be like, I don't want to watch. Tell me about it, though. What happens?
No, I would want to like leave the table until that part of the conversation's over.
Yeah.
And then come back.
Yeah, that's fair.
Here's how I want to start this.
Okay.
First, I wanted to start with talking about soap operas for 5 minutes, which we did.
Okay, good.
And we'll get back to it, hopefully. I want to talk. So something that that some of our friends have done for you with this record is send in videos.
Oh, yeah.
Of talking about some of your songs, like A Memory, all that kind of stuff. And I have not done that, and I have felt guilt and shame every day. And
the door is not shut, by the way.
Well, here's the thing. I thought this will be my time.
Yeah.
Because I have a story.
I
just hate doing videos of myself. I hate it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Which is really interesting because everybody that knows you knows how handsome you are, and you would think you'd see yourself and think, there I am. There's handsome me once again.
That first sentence is correct. There I am. I guess that's what I look like today. Because you always look. You remember those commercials a couple years ago that were brilliant, and they had people thinking of themselves. They had like a daydream of themselves, and it was always like a better looking version of them.
Yes.
Which is so brilliant because that's how we all view ourselves.
Yeah,
like if I'm wearing some kind of new thing, it's not like I think I look amazing, but I'm like, when I see myself, I'm like, oh, I don't look like
what I had
what
in my
I
head.
thought I looked like.
Yeah.
Never do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's 2002 or 2001, somewhere around there. I know because it was my freshman year of college at Anderson University. Go Ravens.
Yep.
Go. That's not the call. But I remember, so all I knew is that my buddy Luke Barrage had done a Young Life camp with Matt Wirtz the summer before, and he played in the band, and he's buddies with Matt. And so Matt was coming to AU to play a show, and he had been playing his record in the dorms, like leading up to it.
This was Some Days, right?
Some Days.
Yeah.
And which is his first record,
full
right?
length, yeah.
So I for whatever reason, I got to the show a little bit late. You were starting at 7, and I got there at like 7:20.
I was opening that night, right?
You were, but I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't heard of you yet.
There was no. Oh, right.
I just knew this guy named Matt Wirtz is coming to play, and I remember walking into, it's called the Marketplace. It was actually our like one of our cafeterias where you guys played. We really gave you guys the royal treatment, and I walk in, and you're playing Nothing Fancy, just you solo. And I was like, what the heck? Like, what is this song? I bet that I came from a practice room where I was like working on a song. Now, I don't remember this, but it's very likely that that's probably why I was late. I was probably in a practice room working on a song, and then I walked, like the 20 feet over to the Marketplace. And you're up there. I think you had really short hair, a little bleached maybe?
It wasn't yet. It would be soon.
Okay. And you were playing that song, and it was like, I've never heard somebody play that good of a song all alone on a stage. Your voice sounded amazing. It was like, what is this? And then I caught the end of your set. That might have been the last song that you did, but I will never forget that moment. And it's still, and I've told you this many times, like Nothing Fancy is on my top 10 songs of all time.
Yeah,
of just like McCartney, Foo Fighters, Ben Folds. It's on the top 10.
Wow.
It's one of the greatest songs.
Do you think
written.
some of, I feel this way about some of my favorite songs, some of it had to do with the first interaction with it, like that moment? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so, but I do think that I really feel strongly that I could have heard that song at any time and been like, that's just one of those songs that you're like, you can have anybody cover that song in any style that they put it in, and that song is that song.
That's really good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was before then, like, fast forward, 6 months, 9 months, when all of a sudden you're opening for Matt and I at
Yeah,
Anderson.
I think that was the next year.
Okay. And Matt and I have a moment in the back where we're like, as you're playing, we're like, well, somebody's got to kill him. So, I mean, it's got to be you or me.
I was probably covering like Drops of Jupiter or something.
No. I just remember like here you come looking so cool and you're so nice and you start playing piano and singing, and Matt and I were like, dadgummit, this kid's still in college. What is he, a sophomore?
I would have been a sophomore, yeah.
Look at his flared jeans. He's got so much power in those Steve Maddens.
The slip-on leathers, Steve Maddens. And then I remember after that show, and then you hopped on drums and played. Luke was on bass, you were on drums, Wirtz was playing. And then I remember like regularly I would go into like friends' dorms, and they would have 3 Then 4, your first EP, just playing. Yeah. It was a thing.
That was some of the dilemma about doing this record. This Remembering record was going, some of these I've already done on acoustic. Like, is it okay if I do them again? Because their first iteration was that. You know what I mean? So then it's like, well, but I think where I landed was like, well, obviously the versions of them now are a lot better than the versions on 3 Then 4. But,
I mean,
people get used to it.
This could be we could do a whole podcast on this, what you're talking about, because I'm getting ready to do this Indiana tour.
Yeah.
Anniversary tour. And so I'm listening to that Indiana record, and I can barely stand it. I can barely stand the way that I'm singing on that freaking record. And I know that you kind of have the similar feelings.
When
with
you're
3 Then
saying
4.
that about walking in with nothing fancy, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what was happening. I was like doing my version of Michael McDonald where I wasn't opening my
Michael
mouth.
McDonald covering you.
And I'm just like, I already cringe thinking, oh God. I mean, you say my voice sounded good, but I know.
What helps me, what I like is hearing you talk about the thing that I feel about my record.
Yeah.
And knowing, like I've said to you before, like I can listen to 3 Then 4, your EP, and I hear what you're talking about, but it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Like I know
Thankfully.
you're singing that way.
Yeah.
And then listening to Remembering, like you sing so much differently now.
Yeah.
That's Annie. Annie's taking off to Trader Joe's.
Okay.
But it just doesn't bother me. Labor Day sales ending.
That really got me. I'm imagining her in just some monster truck chucking down Belmont, just like eating asphalt.
That's so Annie.
Yeah, no, I hear it. But it's funny, and I'm not just saying this, I know we say this all the time, but listening to Indiana, I feel the same way. I'm like, oh, maybe, because you'll go, hear how I sing that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess not. I'm like leaning in, listening.
The actual song, Indiana, I cannot listen to it, Dave. I mean,
you really can't, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote out a piano book, like all the sheet music. So I'm listening to like, how did I play that on the record? Because I play it differently now. And like you, I'm sure I never listened to these songs.
Yeah,
I mean, some of these songs I haven't listened to the actual record version of it in like 15 years, probably. Right. And I just cannot take like what was happening with my jaw back then? Dude, could I not open my mouth?
I just think, was I wearing like 60 turtlenecks?
Yeah.
That was just
inside my throat. Okay, anyway.
And I swallowed
We're talking about Indiana too much.
I had ingested a wintertime Gap store.
I swallowed a Gap campaign.
John Legend is just in my tummy.
Okay, so I want to ask you a question that is risky because I have other questions beyond this that you may end up answering, and I don't want that to happen because I'm the interviewer and I want to ask the question
to you.
But I'm just going to start with just a very kind of blanket question of like, what was the experience like going back for you in recording these 12 songs?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think I underestimated how emotional I was going to get. Like, I know that sounds like probably a weird answer, but I just had 2 or 3 moments when we were down at Sound Emporium down the street from us, recording these, because you play them, a few times. It was me and Nathan Duggar, who was on another acoustic, kind of playing lead lines and stuff, and then Dustin Ransom on keys. And so, we do a few takes because, obviously everybody's just kind of remembering, not to be punny, but, the parts. And like, oh, yeah, Dustin, okay, you do that, I'll do it here. And then he'll, and so you'd kind of, you'd end up doing these songs maybe 5 or 6 times each. And by the, 3rd or 4th time, I'm like, gosh, like I'm thinking about the song sort of. I'm like, oh, yeah, that is a cool chorus. So like, I forgot that I do that little, or Duggar would be like, hey, dude, don't forget you do whatever.
Right. And I'm sure it's different. I mean, obviously you play these songs live.
Right.
But when you're recording them, it's just different. It's a different headspace.
It's what you said about Indiana a second ago, making the book, doing the transcription.
Nah, I don't know.
Whatever it is that you're doing, your crazy sheet
music. Now let's stay here until we get the answer.
Okay, transmogrification.
Transcribe. Yeah, transcription.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's that same thing where you have to go in and make sure you're actually doing what you did. And I did that a lot on this record where I was like, okay, I know how to play this live, but I'd rather lean how people know it, which is the recorded version. So, there would be moments where we'd be recording it and Dustin would be like, actually, that's not the way we do it on the record, or do we want to do it that way, or do we want to do it the way we do it live? And so it's having to sort of square up with that stuff. But
you're constantly making that decision.
Yes, constantly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
They're like, Dave, no. Don't close your mouth more. Your lips need to be barely touching while you're singing.
Remember, you're basically trying to be a ventriloquist for yourself. If you could, but I think all that to say, I think there were just numerous times where like we'd be in the middle of a take or something, and I would just think, gosh, like I really love these songs. And I think the thing that probably overwhelmed me the most was this feeling of, these songs are the songs that I've built my career on. Like these are absolutely the bedrock of my job, of my like career existence, because these are the songs that people, sort of were like, hey, we will support you thanks to these, and we like these, and we'll, so I think for me, I was just really thankful. Like I really got teary eyed a couple times, even singing them here in my studio, just going, man, if I hadn't had these songs, I wouldn't have a career, and I think that was the feeling that I kept feeling, which was just, oh my God, I'm so thankful for these songs. Like without these, I wouldn't be doing this, so. And I think, too, just how, and this is weird to say, but I think you'll know what I mean, because I know between doing these piano books or like writing the scores for, the symphonies you've done in Anderson, where you're going, oh, man, that is a cool little moment. I forgot about that little right-hand lick, or how the band, where you kind of, at the risk of sounding a little weird, it's like you're like, oh, I did a cool thing, like I did something good, and so I think that was the other feeling too, was one, just being thankful, but I think two, kind of having moments where like, God, these things are pretty well done, like they're tight, they're well constructed songs, like there's not a lot of holes in them, and I think that was really humbling, because I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing now, but I really didn't know what I was doing then when I wrote a lot of these songs. Somehow they still float, like they haven't sunk yet, like they're still out there.
Well, then maybe this will be lost on you, because the other side of the coin, when I'm doing what you're describing, is I'm constantly coming up on things that I'm like, I don't do it like that anymore, because I do it this way, and this is the way that I would do it if I could go back in time and do it.
Yeah.
And I noticed when I've listened to this record that there are like even really, really subtle things that you do. Like there's a devil on my shoulder, baby.
Yeah.
I noticed that like with that line on the record, you sing it straight. Tighter, like a little straighter. You do like a triplet kind of like behind the beat kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like little things like that maybe most people listening wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
They'd be like, no, that's the same.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, that's like these little things
Yeah.
that over, years of playing that song live, you have found the way that you more naturally want to sing it or whatever.
Right.
So were there many of those kinds of things where you're like, excuse me, I'm getting
emotional,
choked up just imagining what your answer is. Where you're like, but people know it this way, but I really, like this is the way it should have been, or like, or how do you even view that? Are you like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a regret kind of thing.
Right.
Well,
It's
what
just
was that
it's
like?
changed. Yeah. I went and saw Paul Simon play years ago at the Ryman. Simon at the Ryman. Simon at the Ryman. And he would do these. He, to me, is one of the best. This James Taylor's got this too, where a song so well, and those guys will tweak it 2 millimeters to the right live. Like, and that may be that, like on 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, he had the horns do this thing where it was the most subtle thing. You can hear it live, and I'm going to get this sort of wrong, but it was like they would just do a little hit at the end of the dag jack do a diddle play man do diddle and you're just like, that is so cool, because it's just one more little thing that makes you go, oh. So I think, and he did that throughout the set with classic songs. You're like, I think a lot of people on paper would be like, don't you dare touch these things. And I'm not equating my songs to his, but I think one of the things...
You got to recognize the bits that you can't touch.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Like that drum beat, I would assume. Like,
yeah.
Don't mess with that. Don't do some straight thing.
But what I think I walked away learning from that show was, and that was probably a decade ago, was like, oh, you can still do little nuances to songs that actually do make them better. Like, they really do add a new thing to them. So I think with this record, there was something in the back of my brain that was like, look, if there's every now and then something on a song that does really take it up, or for those people who know it so well, they're going, oh, what's that? That's kind of cool. And so I didn't do that a lot, because I was like, the last thing I want to do is it turns into, a totally different experience. But I did want to, for the moments that I've done that live, that I thought this really does add, like the way that we end Love Will Be Enough for Us, it's not like the record, but it's how we do it live. But I think it's cool. So, and I think to your point, you just said it really well. I also think these are the moments where you go, if I could, I should have done it like this the first time.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's your chance not to write to right the wrongs, necessarily, but just to kind of go, now that I've done it live a long time, I kind of know this is really the better version of it, so I
kind of feel like every artist who has a career, a decade, 2 decades or whatever, should do this every now and then.
Oh, I agree. I mean, to me, I think it was, and I would tell my artist friends, I know you and I talked about this, and I've been pushing you to do it, is like to do it if just for no other reason than how much I think it moves your own heart and soul, just to be like, to sit and play these songs like that and remember them and to enjoy them and sort of think about them in that light. But I think too, it's really fun to put out this version of them, because I think a lot of fans have heard them played this way for years in some iteration, if that's just like a solo John McLaughlin show or whatever, that they go, oh man, I love, whatever the song is, Always Be My Girl, or even like Industry or something. But God, when he plays it solo live, it's a different thing. I can hear it better. That was the thing I remember Tyrone Wells telling me years ago, our dear friend, and he was talking about acoustic shows, because I was still kind of playing band stuff, and he's like, man, I think you'll be amazed at how much your fans will enjoy these shows, because he just said so many people come up to me after shows and were like, man, it's so cool to hear what you're doing, like on the guitar, or hear the vocal a little better, or just catch the nuances of the song in that iteration or whatever.
Right.
And so I think that's another reason I want my friends to do it, is just because I'm like, it's as much for them as it is for you, and vice versa, Plus, I think good songs live in that context really well, and they're not something you're having to worry about, like, is the groove right, or the chorus feel big enough. It's like, no, this is here it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so was there a song in the 12? Well, first off, let me ask this. You've got 12 songs on here, and this undertaking, obviously, for your fans, is going to be a little intense. It's going to be charged, because if you would put out, 12 slots online and be like, all right, everybody, fill out your 12.
Yeah.
You're going to get, a different list for a lot of people. So what would the 13th song have been?
Oh, man.
If there were 13 songs on here.
Gosh, what a great question. Well, the thing that we found, we actually did that. So I polled online and just was like, hey, everybody, what would y'all want to hear? And thankfully, 5% of them were all the same.
Of the 12?
Of the 12.
Because, see, my guess would be, I would have guessed, and I think if I did this, and I have 12 slots, like those top 5, I know what they're going to be.
Right.
Right. But then you get to like the bottom half of it, and I know that 6 is half of 12. So don't get into the details of my math here, but you get to that bottom half, and that's where it starts getting squirrely. And then I could see myself doing that.
Yeah.
And then eventually being like, screw it. I'm just going to do the 12 that I want to do. So 2 of my managers, Paul and Jake, and I sort of had a thread where we were like, okay, what would you do? And everybody kind of sent in their votes. And those were really similar, thankfully. So the 12, honestly, was probably going to be Dreaming Electric, or the 13th was going to be Dreaming Electric Blue. Yeah.
Because I got some votes.
But
then I was like, I want to do that record in 2 or 3 years, where I do like maybe even 5 years, like second half of my career, greatest hits or whatever we call it. And so I decided to just stay out of I think we didn't do anything past Carry On, San Vicente. I think it'll start there for the next one. Because, Wildflower got some votes. There were votes for songs like that were like, God, do we want to do that? That feels like open up a little bit of can of worms. So we stayed. But, I'm telling you, it was unbelievably consistent how the songs that people really wanted. Even down to Crazy About You, which was kind of surprising to me, that
Crazy About You would be on there.
Mm-hmm. But even that was, so I was like, man, we just didn't have to do much thinking. It was wonderful because it was like, okay, these are the ones everybody wants, and
yeah,
there you
see,
go.
that is a great example what you just said right there. That you were surprised that Crazy About You would even be on there. That is a great reminder to me that you can only be so knowledgeable about your own stuff. Because I'm like, Are you crazy? Like, what do you mean Crazy About You wouldn't be on there?
Well, I think some of it is not, sadly, that humble of me. It's more like what sounds the best in this context. Thankfully, Crazy About You sounds great because we've played it so much acoustically. We know how to do it. But
wait. I just randomly was reminded of a story where I wasn't even there. Do you know what I'm talking about? In Indiana. Just give the quick story here.
So, I got really adventurous on this show. We were playing, what was it? The something box.
Music Mill, I think it was called.
It looked like a box. That's why I called it. It was a cool venue. I really loved that venue.
It was.
But I decided that I would start out in this. I would start out in the crowd with Crazy About You at the beginning of the show, so not plugged in, just me and a guitar. So the show's about to start, and I'm kind of walking through the crowd. I'm like, oh, that's there, And I start playing it, and the band was going to pick up the cues. They can't hear me at all. So literally, Paul Mabry, and De La are on stage, and Paul's like squinting, looking at me because the lights are hitting him, and I'm.
And on stage, for people who haven't been on stage, like you can't see anything.
Oh yeah,
it's like you have a million flashlights right in your face. You can't really see anything.
Yeah.
And they can't hear you.
Yeah, and so he's trying to hear, and then I didn't factor in how long it would take me to walk back to the stage. So I'm playing as loud as I can, and Paul's like, I can see, he's like, and he's like, and he just starts going, tss, 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 and they vamp for at least 2 minutes. Well, excuse me. Oh, hey, no, I can't do a picture. Hi, and I'm trying to play,
and there's not there aren't stairs.
No, so I have to go backstage.
The stage is like, 5 feet up. You can't.
So it was like a weird instrumental. It was like a 2-part instrumental. Me and the crowd starting acoustically, navigating my way through a sea of people like a Moses, up to, but not disappear for 30 seconds.
Well, then you get to the stage, and then you realize you can't get on the stage.
Plug in. We don't even know how to start because I'm still sort of plug it. No, plug the thing, and it was just.
Oh, I so wish I were at that show.
Terrible.
In like 10, 15 years. I will remember that I was there. I'll be telling that story like I was there.
You probably blocked it out from trauma.
Yeah.
But I think, that I just think of an album like this, and those are not the songs I'm like, if you give me any of my favorite artists are going, hey, I'm doing an acoustic record, I'm probably going to gravitate more toward the songs that in my brain, even on a subconscious level, I'm like, oh, that would be cool in that context, like a mid to slows and every now and then one that's up tempo, but it doesn't need like a huge rhythm section to make it work.
Right.
And so I think, but even that one was on there. So I was really relieved because we didn't have to do some deep spelunking of like, oh God, now we're gonna have to like draw straws on songs, or do we look at the downloads they've had that justify putting them out?
Which is it's just so hard to tell it if that's the right way to go, the right metric.
Empirical data in a job like ours is tricky enough.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So which song of the 12 was the most, I guess, surprising? And it could be like that it was the most challenging, or it surprised you because it was just like, oh, one take, and I thought this one would be difficult, but there it is.
Yeah.
Which one was the most surprising?
I think Crazy About You was surprising in that I don't sing it at all like I used to. Like the melody I've completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to relearn that one, like completely relearn it, which was really comical. And I've changed a bunch of lyrics kind of on purpose. And I was like, oh, I need to maybe stick to the original script. I think of all of them, though, I think LA Song was the one that really thumped me the hardest, like in a sweet way. I just hadn't played that song live in a long time. And I think getting back to it and playing it, and I tell you, too, so many people like threatened my life. They were like, if you don't put that song on there, I'm going to kill you. And I was like, oh, this song like matters to people. The other thing that's tricky about that song, fun fact, if you go listen to Brother Bring the Sun, the album it's on, I had a melody I used to sing live.
I remember this.
Yeah, and so we got in the studio, and even me, it wasn't even Ed. I was just like, this melody doesn't work when you put a band with it. It's not interesting enough or something. And I think what it is now, I think the songwriter in me now knows it starts really high and stays high. Like the melody on the verse is really high, and it just doesn't. Those songs, it works like a lot of great songs like this, but generally in songwriting, you want your chorus to be the highest notes. It's what makes it feel like the chorus lifts. That's how you even know what a chorus is. You're like, oh, this is where everybody's supposed to sing. And I think subconsciously I just realized once we got in the studio, like me singing that high for so long before I get to the chorus is not serving the chorus right. So we dropped the melody, or I just changed the melody in the studio real time. But you can hear the old melody in my headphones because it was so loud in the track.
Oh, that's in the headphones?
That's in the headphones. So it's.
So I remember getting Brother Bring the Sun. When did that come out? 2003?
I think 4.
I remember listening to it for the first time, that song. And of course, being like thrown, like, oh, that's not the melody.
Yeah.
What is happening?
Yeah.
And it's it's when you're going into the last verse.
That's right.
You can hear it a little bit.
Yeah, because the band.
But I didn't know it was headphone bleed.
Yeah, it's headphone bleed because I had a headphone off, and so that one was fun to sing because I was like, I actually want to do the old melody, and I think I started doing the old melody live when I would do it. I did the last Christmas shows I did last year. Somebody yelled it from the crowd and kept yelling it from the crowd at this venue. And finally I was like, I'm just going to do it. So I had the band walk off.
And you were ignoring me. That
was fair. You and Mom.
Yeah.
And finally, like to satiate their heathen bloodthirst, I did it. And while playing it, I sang the old melody, which I never do. And I was like, oh, that feels good live. So I think doing that song in the studio and just how well Dustin played this outro solo that was just, it's gorgeous. And what Duggar's doing, and it was just really cool. It was really cool. That one got me. I sort of, and Hillary Scott sings on it, so that was really cool too to hear her sing. So that's one of those where I mean, like arguably I may like this new version better than the old one, just because I feel like it really. Something about how naked that song is in that context really communicates to me, the new version. So I'd say that one. But, Love Will Be Enough is great because we got to do 3-part harmony, which usually, I guess, 2-part with me, which on the record we don't do, but we've done live forever. So there's some that were really fun because you got to kind of go, oh, man, people can hear it like we talked about a minute ago, like I want to hear it. But I would probably say LA Song of all the one. And Grace's was fun because I just was like, I'm going to play this like I play it live with all the little meadly leads and the noodles. So that's one I'm really proud of because I feel like it's fun that people have a version of how I play it live because it's one of those that people are always like, man, it's cool to hear you play it like that, and so now you can hear it.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of these songs being so naked and exposed, which should have been the.
I was gonna say we
title.
flirted with that, but it
Jeez.
just the URLs were all taken.
Oh, okay.
A little off.
Okay.
color.
I got a couple of those. What was the best going through these 12? What, in your opinion, is the best lyric? And it doesn't even have to be the song. This song has the best lyric, but like, if you were showing Bob Dylan your stuff, and you know he's going to be lyric leaning,
what one you mean?
what lyric line are you most proud of? And then musically, which song are you most proud of musically?
I think LA song again on that chorus that Jesus love like a bullet from a gun, he's careful like a surgeon. That one really popped out, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I thought that was. I mean, not in a bad way. That I was like, yeah, that's a lyric. Because now it'd be like, what is that? Why would you say surgeon? So that probably again jumped out the most while I was singing it. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's really bizarre. I do think this, and I don't know if you feel this way, but like when you meet younger artists right now, you know, as long as we've been doing what we do, those are the things that I think are my little. If somebody's like, hey, I've just moved to Nashville, I've got, you know, and I'd love to send you my songs and tell you, you know, one of the things, even at a subconscious level, I think I'm listening for is actually those kind of things where I'm like Indiana for me. When I heard that song the first time, I was like, that is one of the coolest ways to say all that stuff I've ever heard. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm always listening for something. Should I do this for a living? Or what do you think? I'm always like, give me something that I'm not expecting. Just give me something that's particular to you and how you think about things in the world. And so I think looking back, I'm like, it's cool in that context, hearing that lyric, but I definitely am now like, yeah, I wish I would write that lyric now, but I think my discipline would probably be like, no, we gotta keep it between the lines or something.
Yeah, right.
Gosh, and then musically, I mean, Graces to me is just always. I love what happens musically in that song. Like that bridge to me is still really fun, and yeah, I mean, yeah, I think probably those two. But there's more sneaky stuff. I think, you know, you and I've talked about this. We don't have to talk about this now, but you know, I've been studying the Beatles this year really deeply, and something I love about them is how much they just use chords so interestingly.
Yeah.
And I think because I've been studying them this year, and I recorded Remembering this year, I've just listened to my own music in that way. I'm like, did I ever do stuff that was interesting? And then I think back then, because I wasn't meaning to. I was, but I wasn't going like, hey, let's throw some cool chords in. I was just like, that's where I hear the melody going. And I was really, like, thankfully encouraged to hear, like, oh, wow, there are some musical things happening in a lot of these songs that I just forgot I did.
Right.
You know, like little moments where something's like, oh, that was weird. I put that chord there. You know, so even Nothing Fancy, like the flat 7, there's just some moments where I'm like, oh, I did do some cool. All right, way to go, Dave. You know what I mean? Like, coming in with a new methodology now, I'm sort of like, can I lay this over my old stuff and it still works? And I was so relieved to know, like, oh no, there's definitely some moments in here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Okay. Which of the songs, which of the 12 would you say, if they're like your children?
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah.
Which one is like the hardest kid? Which one's the one you've had the most tumultuous relationship with?
Oh, that is such a good question, John. Oh man. I think in some ways it's been this may be a surprise to you, but I think in some ways it's been on a night like this because it was just such a weird the you know, when I wrote it, it was like the version on Brother Bring the Sun is how I wrote it, which is like a minute and a half or something. It's really short. It's like a half a song. And I never wanted to record it. I just thought it was like this sweet little thing. I kind of thought it was too sweet at times. I was like, I don't want to get near it. And then Ed was like, we got to record it. And so, yeah, I think it's all, and I love it. Like, I love it now. I love that song. I'm so proud of it. But I think for a long time, it was always one I was like, I don't want to. And you know our genre. Like, you know our genre. Like, you're playing these shows, and like a lot of time you're playing with a bunch of other dudes and, you know, really cool looking dudes who are really good at what they do. And a song like that can sort of feel like a Disney song. It can feel like, you know, you're playing, you know, some really beautiful, but like it's a weird. It's like that can get tricky.
Yeah.
You're playing some club, you
Right.
know, and it's like the rest is just funky and fun or whatever the band's in. You're like, what a night like, So I think that one's always been the one that's like, I knew people liked it, but I think for me, I was always like, oof, it can be a little.
I mean, I have a Disney song that I feel that exact way about.
Yes.
Where I'm like, and I feel way different about it now.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'll play it. And again, it's so hard to, when I'm playing it, especially when it's in the context like this record is, where it's like so exposed and like simplified.
Yeah.
It's like a reduction.
Yeah.
So everyone is filling in stuff in their heads, unless they've never heard your music before and they listen to this record for the first time. But everyone else who knows this song, whatever the song is, and you're playing it solo, everyone's filling in so many spaces in their head. And in my head, when I'm in that place that you just described, I'm hearing Disney. Nothing against Disney. Love Disney, but it's I'm hearing a different sound than I want to be doing right now.
That's right.
But I think at this point now, 15 years into it, I'm starting to hear things a little bit more with less like mud in the water.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, I feel like so many songwriters performing songwriters, like, say this, and I think it is so true. There's so many songs that you do, I think, early in your career that you sort of attach a thought to that sort of harms the song, where you're like, it's too sweet, it's too sappy, it's too slow, it's too fast, it's too funky, it's too whatever.
Because you always attach, at least for me, like, I have songs that hurt me the other way, where I'm like, no, when I play this, I sound like the Killers.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what?
Yes.
You don't sound like the Killers.
That's exactly right.
But when I wrote it, it's the Killers performing the song in my head,
And I think because we play live music, you sort of attach little qualifiers to them so you know where to put them.
Right.
I need the song that's going to shut everybody up. Boom, that's the song. I need the fun, funky. That's the song.
Yep.
And you can mislabel songs.
Totally.
You know what I mean? You can go like, that's my sweet, everybody. And everybody's like, no, it's not your sweet. That's your powerful. You could end the show with that song. No, you can't. It's just me. So I think, too, what I hear a lot of singer-songwriters say is it'll take them 20 years to get around a song, to where you can finally square up with the song and be like, no, this is a great song. And I just sort of had a weird experience with it early, or played it in a context where one person said something, or you just got in your head like, this song, I'm putting it out, but I just feel this way about it and I can't get over it. It's like, just life and distance finally give you a perspective on the right perspective on some songs.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me that way. It's like you get it's the ego thing too. You finally just let yourself be, do what it does.
It's so fascinating to me, that whole thing, because like you're saying, it's not just on its face. It's like, which song do you play? But there's so much involved.
Yes.
It's like how you see yourself.
Right.
How and you can get stuck in these loops where it's like, well, this is how I felt when I wrote that song, or when I recorded it.
That's a great point.
And then you're stuck there for a while.
Because you can be in the studio and your producer says one thing off the cuff as a total joke. Like, you love the song.
Yeah.
And the band's queuing it up, and he's like, all right, let's do the Disney tune. And you're like, and all you think about now is like, great, this guy, girl I respect.
Yep.
Is it's a Disney. Well, I never heard it. Now all I hear it is like, Snow White singing it through the forest.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to be cool, man. You know, and now you're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
I
know. Okay, I've got one last question for you. And I want to warn you, this is an inappropriate question.
Okay.
That probably shouldn't be asked.
Okay, I love that. These are the questions I'm the most excited about.
But I'm asking it because, in my experience, I've never made a record where there wasn't something immediately, a couple months later, that I'm like, I would change X. There's always something. I always want to go back and record and re-record something. So if you could have this record back and you haven't put it out yet, is there anything that you would go back and change about it?
That's a great question. I don't think so. And the reason that I say that is, one, like, I feel like I did a lot of this ahead of time and producing it myself. Like, I had to really go that question. It's like I squared up with that question 3 months before I started recording. It was like, because one of the dilemmas we had in the studio with like Someday Sarah was, yeah, it kind of needs a bass line. But it was like we had all agreed we're not going to do rhythm parts or bass. We're just not going to do it. You know, and then you get in the middle of it, you're like, hey, Dustin, can you just for fun on the B3 do like a low end? And you're like, okay, thank you. So thankfully, I feel like during the process, I didn't stick too much to my guns on some things because, like, you know, I had Scott Mulvihill came in and played stand-up bass on Level Be Enough for Us. So I had made little tweaks that I felt like I know if I hadn't done those would be my answers. I'd be like, we should have added bass to a couple of the tracks, but I was just too like dogmatic to be like, no, it's not going to have that. So thankfully, and I think too, listening to the guys, you know, like as we were recording, you know, being like, because there were a couple times where I was like, we'd get like after Someday Sarah, we got in the studio and we're all listening to me and Doug and Ransom, and I was like, does this need bass? And they were both like, yeah. And it was like, okay, let's do it. It wasn't, you know. So to answer your question, I think those things probably would have been right. And in a year from now, I may have things I'm like, oh no, now. But I'm pretty proud of how it landed. But it is also really simple. So you're not dealing with what we usually are, where you have 90 tracks on a song. Right. And you're like, oh God, I wish we hadn't added the orchestra or had the children's choir, or I should have sung in this section something different or something. This is kind of the easiest version of that because they're well-established songs. You know what you're doing with them most of the time. And the biggest thing I had to do really was personnel. It was like, how far do we chase the yellow brick road before it turns into the wrong, we've just gone too far. Yeah. And it's like, you know, so I'm thankful for it. And I think like this version of it is exactly kind of what I was hoping it would be, which I'm really thankful. I mean, that was, and I'll say this too, the advice that I got, it was really fascinating to me. So when I decided to do it, I called Ed, I called my dear friend Josh Kerr, and my other friend Jordan Reynolds, because I was like, I wanted Ed because he's produced me for all these years, and then I wanted two guys in Jordan and Josh who grew up listening to my music but are really good friends of mine now, and I needed those very specific perspectives. So Ed, I was like, hey, how should I do these songs? What's the treatment? And I asked those two guys the same things. I said, how should I do these? Like, because I was like, you know, we could do like light percussion that kind of gives you a backbeat on some of these things, but it's not overdone. We can do just me and the guitar, and it's just a vocal and the guitar. And all three of them had the same answer, which was really affirming and like unbelievably, it was a huge relief because it was like
acapella.
They were like, don't do it. Don't do the record. And that was the fire I needed to do the record. Yep. That was Michael Jordan's basketball coach going, you're never going to play. Yep. You know,
God, those guys are smart.
They're so smart, and not my friends anymore. Right. And no, but they all said keep it simple, but like don't do it just you and the guitar, but do not add a rhythm section. Yeah. And so it was a really helpful thing of going like, okay, the middle, like don't do a bunch of overdubs. Have it be, you know, instruments that play the whole time with you, not coming in doing a little extra and then a little extra here, whatever. Yeah. So it was really helpful. So I think all that stuff really put it in a way that I felt pretty confident going in, like, okay, this is the way to do it. Yeah. And has relieved me, at least at this point, of kind of like, oh, gosh.
Right. You know? Well, I'm glad that that's your answer.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll revisit it in a year.
I was going to say that's exactly right.
Well, man, it's a great record, and it sounds awesome, and these songs are amazing, and everybody needs to run out to your local Borders and get your copy.
Your local Borders. Yeah, thanks. That